Welcome everyone. My name is Paresh Shah and I'm glad that all of you could be with us today for this webinar. Just by a show of hands or through the chat window, I want to make sure everyone can see the title slide at least, and everyone can hear me okay. Make sure there are no technical issues. Rovina, can you maybe unmute the lines so if folks have questions during the presentation, they're welcome to speak up, or maybe there's a raise their hand function. Perfect. Thank you. Sounds like there's a little bit of noise, so maybe we do keep it on mute. Well, once again, my name is Paresh Shah. I am the strategic business lead across the Asia-Pacific region for Hewlett-Packard's security business. And I've been in the security space for almost 15 years now. I started my career in security as a consultant, doing various types of engagements for a small company called At Stake. I went on to lead professional services teams delivering very strategic security services to some of the largest companies in the world, Fortune 50 companies around the globe, mostly in North America. And most recently, I'm working now with a lot of our customers and partners here in Asia Pacific on various security topics, but mostly focus on application security and what we at HP are calling the new school of IT, and how some of our solutions can help you folks protect your new digital enterprise. So I've got some content I'm going to present, probably about 40 minutes worth or so of some material. Just by the nature of the webinar, we can't keep the lines open because of background noise and things of that nature. But as I'm presenting, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into your chat window, and I'll see the questions and we'll be happy to answer them. I like to keep these things as interactive as possible, but I understand that in this format, that's a little bit more challenging. That said, I do like to answer questions at all times, so please don't hesitate as the presentation goes forward. Okay, so let's get into it a little bit. I'm really enthused. It seems like we've got a great turnout today, so a lot of folks have joined. It's particularly interesting and particularly enthusing for me because at HP, one of our themes over this last couple of years has been strength in numbers. And as I've gone to events all around Asia, all around the world, focused on security, we see larger and larger numbers of folks that are coming out. And it tells us a couple of things. One, of course, it tells us how important security has become in terms of driving value for enterprises. But more importantly, I think it tells us that there are more individuals, more professionals, more roles that are taking on security responsibilities. And so at HP, at least, we made it a theme this year at our annual security event called HP Protect. And we like it as a theme, the theme of strength in numbers. We like it as a theme because it conveys a few different things that are important to us and kind of the approach that we're taking to security intelligence. And one of those is that strength in numbers means better together at the same time. As a group, as a community, as a cohort of security professionals, we are better prepared and we can have a stronger impact on protecting online users and activities when we work together. Secondly, strength in numbers refers to our increasing use of analytics and the increasing influence of big data, not only in IT but also in security. Analytics is a huge focus for us at HP, and we're really passionate about the strides we're making in terms of using analytics to create better security intelligence, which is really what our focus has been for the last couple of years and continues to be, is getting as intelligent as we can with the data we have, using analytics to pinpoint particular areas of anomalous behavior. Strength in numbers for us is also important because it helps us drive that intelligence within our products. And so When we look at the HP security portfolio, we've of course got most of the world's largest banks, software companies, telecoms, defense departments, etc., that are customers of ours. And that is obviously a point of pride, but more importantly for our customers, it lets them know that they are able to get data from a lot of different sources, and they're able to contextualize that data based on a lot of different inputs. So at HP, before I dive too much into specific security information, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about the strategy and focus that's driving HP Enterprise going forward. We're really focusing on 4 key strategies that are aimed to help customers make the transition and take the journey from traditional IT environments to what we're calling the new style of IT that powers the idea economy. And you're probably thinking, what does that even mean? What is this new style? What is this silly thing called the idea economy? And it's a combination of some words that maybe doesn't immediately make sense. But what we're saying is pretty simple. It's all about taking the power of cloud, mobility, big data, social, and security, and enabling you to turn ideas into business value faster than ever before in history. And at HP Enterprise, we're focused on helping our customers take that journey from traditional IT to this new style of IT by driving 4 key solution areas for us. And that's what's represented on this picture here. And the first solution area, of course, is transform. And this is all about delivering the next generation of applications and the hybrid infrastructure that they're going to run on. These are the applications and the hybrid infrastructure that are going to power your business. Secondly, we're focusing on protect. This solution area is all about protecting the digital enterprise, protecting your most prized assets. Thirdly is empower, and this is about empowering a data-driven organization, using the power of analytics, using the power of big data to allow your organization to make smarter, faster, more intelligent decisions. And lastly, enablement. It's enabling a more productive workplace and superior customer experience. Now, arguably, one could say that protecting your digital enterprise is the most important of these 4 solution areas, because if you can't protect your digital enterprise, everything else is a moot point. And as you can imagine, at HP, we have a very strong point of view when it comes to protecting the digital enterprise. In the new style of IT, security isn't really about purely protecting the network infrastructure. It's expanded beyond that a great deal, and in today's environment, what you really need to protect are the interactions between your users, your application, and your data. Regardless of where those users are, regardless of where the applications are hosted, regardless of where their data resides. Also, regardless of whatever type of device your users are running the applications on and they're accessing the data, right? It could be a company-given workstation, it could be their phone, it could be a tablet, it could be a workstation at an internet cafe, it could be a workstation at a hotel. You want to be able to ensure that you can protect the entire chain of custody as your users, whether they be employees or customers or partners, can safely and securely use the applications that you've provided to access data that they need to run their own businesses and to engage with you. Right? So let's take that in a moderately different view and map that against what we're seeing as the new style of threats. Right? So when we look at the new style of IT, which we just captured a little bit, it combines itself with the new style of threats. And at HP, we look at that as the attack lifecycle, which is very much different today than it was, for instance, back in the day when I was a young security consultant doing pen tests and trying to break into networks. Today's attack lifecycle is empowered by a marketplace that never existed 5 or 6 years ago. The actors are far more sophisticated, they're far more organized, and they're far more motivated by purely material gains than ever before. 10 years ago, the biggest problem most organizations faced were from script kiddies, from people that were just looking at device websites, that were simply trying to gain some street cred by hacking into the Department of Defense or some bank, leaving some little GIF or bitmap on the website proving they were there. Today's environment is much different. There's a very robust and a very active marketplace for everything that we look at this attack life cycle. On the research side, you can go into the dark web and you can quickly review, communicate, vet, and decide on a vendor that will provide you with all the research you need on your potential targets. Once you've gotten the research information you want, you can go back to the marketplace and you can go through the same process on individuals or groups of individuals that specialize on just infiltrating targets. Simply getting in, whether it's through a phishing attack or through malware. From there, you can move to discovery, which is all about understanding what's going on in your target's environment. And again, without much difficulty, you can find folks that specialize only on the discovery task. You'll find organizations, individuals, groups that focus only on obtaining the data once the mapping has been done. Then you go to exfiltration, where you've got to actually remove the assets. And then, of course, there's a marketplace to sell those assets and monetize your efforts. So this very organized, very specialized, very robust marketplace makes attacks far more potent. They're far more potent in terms of how long they last, they're far more potent in terms of how sophisticated they are, and they're far more potent in terms of the damage that they do to your organization. So let's look a little bit at how the new style of IT and these new sophisticated attacks are coming together. When we look at how our infrastructure, how our environments are changing, and when we look at when our attackers are changing, what effect is that having? And I believe the slide hasn't quite jumped. There you go. Excellent. So for a little bit of context, Gartner tells us that last year, 77% of all security spend was spent on blocking technologies. And that makes complete sense in a traditional IT environment, right? From what many of us are used to, you build a big wall, maybe you dig a moat around the wall, and then you keep people out. That's your main concern, blocking. And as a consultant, I've seen it myself in my early days as a consultant in the early 2000s. Nearly 80% of the work that we had was network-based. We would do network penetration tests, or network architecture reviews, or network segmentation reviews. But by the time the mid to late aughts came around, 2007, 2008, 2009, our business had almost completely turned, where 80% of it had turned into application assessments, whether penetration tests, code reviews, architecture reviews. but all of it had flipped. Folks weren't so concerned about blocking anymore because the problem had been solved. Yet today, in 2015, we still see an incredible amount of resources allocated towards blocking technologies and keeping people out. However, in the new style of IT, in our transforming hybrid environment of mobile, cloud, bring your own device, Internet of Things, the security perimeter is eroding and expanding faster and further than we ever imagined. It's become quite amorphous in some ways. The whole notion of a perimeter has almost gone away. And because of this, the attack surface has expanded exponentially. And the data that we get from various researchers and our own research bears this out. In a survey that we did, a research survey that we undertook with across our 5,000 customers, half of the orgs, I should say, a solid 50% of the orgs that we looked at that were allowing mobile devices on their networks reported a significant increase in the volume and the frequency of attacks coming from those devices. And that may seem like not a big number when we look at just mobile devices, but the fact of the matter is, and I'm sure everyone on the call today has some experience with this, increasingly all of our customers, all of our partners, all of our employees are using mobile devices to interact with our applications and to access data. Right? So this is the reality of today, and it's very much going to be the reality going forward. When we compound that, when we look at our mobile devices, but we compound that with the fact that a full 97% of mobile applications are affected by vulnerabilities. Essentially, every single mobile application that's out there today, whether you get it from the App Store, the Apple App Store, whether you get it from the Android Store, every single one of them, nearly, is affected by a critical vulnerability. And this data comes from our own research through one of our SaaS offerings called Fortify on Demand, where we're assessing nearly 300 applications every week. This information is scary in a couple of different ways. One, it tells us that there's a very rich, target-rich environment for attackers. And B, it tells us that clearly enterprises are not allocating their resources in the right places. They're not spending money their most vulnerable areas. Right. So let's dig into this a little bit more. If we look at some other numbers, this also comes from a Gartner study, and I apologize, the slides are very slow coming up for you folks, but hopefully it'll flip in just a second here. Last year, and this was in 2014, of all the publicly acknowledged breaches that occurred, a full 82% were the root cause was a breach at the application layer. So again, we're talking about how the environment has changed in terms of where attacks are coming from and how they're affecting the enterprise. And what we're seeing increasingly is that these attacks are happening on mobile devices. Mobile devices are vulnerable, and they're happening at the application layer. Right? When we look at these things in summary, in context, I should say, what we quickly understand is that with the convergence of the new style of IT and the new style of attackers, these new sophisticated persistent attacks combined with the new style of IT, it becomes obvious that securing the perimeter is no longer as efficient or nearly as effective as it used to be. Keeping people out is simply not going to do the job anymore. Right? So that's become clear. And at HP, at least, we're strong believers, and this hasn't changed from new to current style of IT. There's no change here. But your most prized assets are your people, your applications, and your data. And as I said earlier, the challenge today isn't keeping people out. It isn't building a big wall. The challenge is protecting the interactions between those users, applications, and data. And doing that between those elements, even as we go beyond the traditional perimeter. Right? So the challenge is protect those interactions, even though it becomes increasingly difficult as we move beyond the traditional perimeter. As IT departments, we simply don't have control over all of the devices. We don't have control over all of the places our users will be accessing our data from. And we simply don't always have control over where that data resides. And so to help us with this really big problem is analytics. We think analytics has a huge role to play here because the problem is no longer as simple as identifying vulnerabilities. It's not as easy as just saying, hey, there's a SQL injection there, or hey, that server hasn't been patched. You need to be a lot more contextualized in your approach. You need to apply risk to the identification process. And analytics can be a tremendous help when it comes to protecting the enterprise that has these new and these porous perimeters. Because with the help of analytics, you can take the very massive and you can make it eminently manageable. And further, analytics is uniquely suited to finding the proverbial needle in the haystack, which is to say, using analytics, we can identify those anomalies that will reveal the most complicated modern attack. Right? So what does that mean, right? We kind of have a sense of how the new style of IT and how the new style of attacks are changing what we should be doing. We understand that analytics plays an important role here, and because of that at HP, over the last 2 years and going forward, we've redoubled our investments and our efforts around analytics. And what we're doing is, or what I intend to do today is show you how those investments and those efforts have taken shape in our individual products, but also in our broader story of security intelligence, right? Because we want you to experience the power of analytics across multiple domains, not just simply on point solutions. And further, it's important to take an end-to-end approach, so we're not simply looking at analytics and saying, hey, look at this great big data analytics solution, look how great it is. But we've embedded those analytics into a framework that starts with monitoring and identification. You wrap analytics around it, and then it takes us all the way to enforcement actions, right? So what does that mean? Let's take a look at what that means in real sense. Let's talk about some real-world examples so we can bring some life and some shape to this discussion and really show all of you what I'm talking about. So let's start at the top with applications. Around this time last year, HP launched Application Defender, which is a SaaS offering for application protection. Application Defender takes the security testing and inspection technologies from our industry-leading Fortify and WebInspect product lines, and it allows you, the customer, to monitor applications in real time, regardless of where they lie. Doesn't matter what device they're on, doesn't matter where they're being accessed from, but you can monitor them in real time, actually analyze what's going on inside of the application, actually see how users are interacting with the application, what data they're accessing, who's logging in, who's logging out. You can wrap analytics around that, correlate it with other intelligence information you have, and take that all the way into enforcement action by either kicking users off the application, actively blocking malicious activity, or simply taking the application offline, right? So here's a solution specific to applications that uses everything we've been talking about, that empowers IT professionals to take very proactive measures to protect, to monitor, to protect, and actually enforce activity. All right. Let's go to the center of the wheel now and talk a little bit about threat intelligence and security event monitoring. In April of this year, so a few months back, HP launched a product called Threat Central. If you haven't heard about Threat Central already, it's a crowdsourced threat intelligence sharing platform where all of our users, all of our members are able to submit information about threats with context about how they're being affected, and a very trusted and curated select community, including HP research, helps organize and correlate this information so that it adds context and allows you to respond to threats using a very robust analysis engine, right? The standards-based platform, so you can take that information and it can easily be consumed by whatever platform you have for event management. Moving on to data. When we look at our data, HP has an interesting leading solution for data security under the Atala and Voltage brands. Most specifically, there's an Atala product called Information Protection and Control. This product allows you to monitor unstructured data wherever it sits, whether it's emails, Word files, SharePoint sites, Excel spreadsheets, whatever it might be. You monitor those data files, you can analyze them using a data classification technology. It classifies the documents and the files in a very automated and very persistent way. And you can do this at the time of data creation based on security sensitivities. And then we take this all the way to enforcement action by deploying our encryption technologies to encrypt and protect the files if they breach whatever security threshold that you've set for them, right? So here's a product that looks at your data, allows you to monitor the information that's being created, allows you to analyze the information that's being created. Using analytics, apply the appropriate classification, and then take an enforcement action by encrypting the data as necessary. If we go to the left-hand side of this wheel, let's talk about users a little bit. Again, earlier this year in May, as it were, we launched a product or a solution called ArcSight User Behavior Analytics. At HP, we're not super creative with our naming, so the names tend to be very literal. User Behavior Analytics essentially monitors user behavior across domains, across applications, wherever the users are. We look at their daily activities, we look at what applications they're accessing, what files they're using, where and what data they're storing, etc. Taking all these data points, using analytics, UBA builds a baseline profile for all of the users, assigns a risk score to each one of them, and using our continuous monitoring facility and analytics, we can identify if there's any anomalous behavior. If a user for some reason starts to engage in some activity that takes their risk score above their baseline profile, we can quickly go to an enforcement action by throwing out an alert and kicking off a forensics investigation to further look into what's going on, why is this user's pattern of behavior changed, and is there something malicious taking place. If you move down to the bottom of the infrastructure, just launched a couple of months ago, it's a product we're calling DNS Malware Analytics, which again, very literal name because that's what we do best. This is a technology that has actually been in the making at HP Labs with our research team for a little bit more than 3 years. Internally at HP, our DNS event stream is approximately 20 to 25 billion events per day. And within all that noise, our HP security team was trying to understand what is the best way to filter through all this data to understand where is the really malicious DNS traffic, right? And after that 3 years of research, of using big data, of using analytics, we've launched DNS Malware Analytics, which essentially allows you to monitor all your DNS requests, look at the entire stream, filter out all of the bad noise, focus in on the 1% of traffic that actually represents malware, a potentially infected host that's trying to reach out to command and control center, and then take that to an enforcement action by quarantining those infected hosts, right? So this is just another example of one of our products that's taking the power of analytics, taking the power of intelligence, and within our framework, allowing you to take enforcement action. All right, let's go on a little bit here. So those are just a few examples, the ones that we just discussed, but our entire security portfolio of products aligns to the same framework of using analytics and allowing enforcement action, and focuses on solutions that address how our new style of IT is being set up and how the new style of attackers are targeting our businesses. Right? So what you see on this slide that just popped up now are some of the other products that we have. We've discussed some of those applications, but there's a few more examples. And before I end, I just want to go back to a slide we started with, which was the attack lifecycle, and just map in a different way where many of our different products align with what's happening in the attack lifecycle. On the research side, HP Enterprise has the industry's largest pure security research team, more than 5,000 researchers that drive a lot of our products. On the infiltration, on the blocking side, we of course have HP Tipping Point and HP Fortify, which does a lot of network and a lot of application-based protection to help stop infiltration. On the discovery side, we've of course got our HP ArcSight portfolio to monitor events, do correlation. When it comes to capture and obtaining data, our data security products, HP Atala, HP Voltage. And when it comes to exfiltration and damage and doing forensics, of course, in this area, HP ArcSight applies as well when you're looking at traffic, and then of course our professional services team. So that is all I had to talk about or present today. I wanted to introduce to you how we kind of at HP Enterprise are looking at the future of IT, where we see attacks coming from, how we see our adversaries behaving, and give you an idea of what some of the solutions are that we have put into place that align with at least our framework of how these things are happening. I'm happy to take some questions now. I think I see one in the chat window actually. How are academic organizations working to protect their data in the changing environments? That is a great question from Dr. Ranjan. HP works closely with educational institutions around the world. whether they're universities, high schools, elementary schools. We've done a lot of work both on the research side in terms of working with students, and then also on the customer side in terms of providing solutions that are cost effective and help them protect the data that they have, which in many cases is quite sensitive in terms of personally identifiable information, obviously academic records, etc. I think each organization, Dr. Ranjan, takes a moderately different approach based on their own requirements. But academic organizations, in terms of how their IT is set up, in terms of what their environments look like, are not terribly different from private enterprise. They have a lot of the same things at risk in terms of data, in terms of assets, and their working models are very similar as well in terms of the different types of vendors they have, the different types of partners they have. I think the only thing that maybe differentiates them moderately from private enterprise is that on the technology kind of circle, they might just be a little bit further behind. So we tend to see more legacy systems, more legacy web application types of things with academic institutions, not as much mobile stuff. And so some of their standards, some of their practices, some of their policies are a little bit outdated, but in terms of working with them to protect their data, I think some of the solutions we saw today, whether it was App Defender, whether it's Atala or Voltage to do encryption while the data is at rest or while the data is being used. Voltage has this incredible format preserving encryption, which is really unique and a game changer in terms of allowing organizations to do tests, to work with applications with live encrypted data. I think all those solutions apply and work with many of the academic institutions. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? Ravina, I don't see anything else in the chat. Do we want to maybe just try and open up the lines and see if anyone has a question to ask? Okay, I do. One more question here in the chat. What is the scope of analytics in HP? Let's see, that's a pretty broad question. I'm not 100% certain that I know what you're trying to get at. But I think it'd be fair to say that within HP, the scope of analytics is quite broad. We have a large number of data scientists that are working on projects across the board. I think one project, for instance, we didn't talk about today, but on the application security sites with our Fortify product line, we recently launched just a few months ago, actually, a technology called Scan Analytics that is being worked on by our research team in Israel. And in this particular case, we're not looking directly at malicious data, but we're looking at vulnerability data. So our Fortify product line scans source code. It's the industry-leading source code analysis tool available. And when you look at source code, invariably you find any number of vulnerabilities. They could be in the thousands. High, medium, low criticality vulnerabilities. Scan Analytics is a machine learning technology that we've invested in, that we just launched, that as you use it more and more often and as you categorize which vulnerabilities are most important for you, which vulnerabilities tend to be most persistent in the code that you have, it continues to learn and be smarter about weeding out false positives and making your classification smarter. So the more you use it, the smarter the system gets, eventually leading to a place where you can weed out 85, 87, 92% we've had in some cases of false positive removal. And when I say false positive, I mean more about removing those vulnerabilities that are noise, that you're not so concerned about, the low criticality vulnerabilities. So that's just one example of where we've taken analytics into a very new arena. And so to answer your question, I think the scope is quite broad. We're really trying to use big data and analytics to solve a lot of problems. Hopefully that answered your question, Dr. Ranjan. Okay. Let's see. I think I've got another question here. how can the data in academic organizations be managed so as to safeguard the interests of the organization? I think that goes back to the question that I answered earlier, which is, I think whether it's a private enterprise or whether it's an academic organization, when you're looking at the data you have and the data that you're protecting, you need to take an approach like anyone else, which is to say, we talked about this with the Atala solution set. When it's unstructured data or structured data, you need to monitor it, all of it. You need to analyze it. You need to understand what the criticality is for each of the data, apply some classifications, and then enforce correctly, which is to say encrypt the things that you want to encrypt. Atala IPC is a great solution for that in terms of automating and providing persistent monitoring and protection. But again, a solution I think that solves a lot of problems in private enterprise, works very well in the academic environment. I think one of the things that we've seen the biggest change in over the last 10 years in IT security is that with this new style of IT, environments, whether they're small or medium-sized companies to large enterprises to academic institutions, environments have become very similar. The types of problems that organizations are trying to solve are also very similar. And so we've seen a great contraction, I would say, in how different types and sizes of customers are reacting. So there was the time, for instance, where industry-based security solutions was a trend. We would look at different verticals and say, well, if you're in the automotive industry, you need to look at solutions of this nature. And if you're in the retail industry, look at this. And if you're in the consulting business, look at this. But I think a lot of that has gone away. Not all of it, but much of that has gone away in terms of organizations across the spectrum, across verticals, across size, are all facing very, very similar challenges. And as a result, the solutions are also similar. Okay, let me see. Yes, a little bit more about HP Atala. I'd be absolutely happy to, Dr. Ranjan. I think probably the best thing, just for the purposes of everyone else on the call, is for you to reach out. In fact, what I'll do is I'll have your contact information sent to me from the organizers, Dr. Ranjan, and I'll make sure that we have someone reach out to you in the next week or so and walk you through our HP Atala portfolio and what you can do on the data protection side. So appreciate your query, and we'll make sure we definitely get in touch. I'll have one of our resources in Bombay reach out to you and spend some more time. Let's see, another question here. Does HP have an analytics software to get reports and all? Yeah, I think a moderately broad question again, but if I understand the root of what you're trying to get at, I think analytics drives the reporting in almost all of our solutions, right? So whether it's an Atala solution, whether it's an ArcSight solution, whether it's a Fortify solution, whether it's a Voltage solution, we've embedded our analytics technology into all of those things to help you better identify, contextualize, and bore down to what you want to see a report on. So whether it's creating a dashboard, whether it's creating, a written report, I think the analytics research that we've done and the investments we've made is embedded into all of those technologies. We do not have a specific piece of software that I think you can apply on some of your own data. But I think what you'll see in using our products is that our research and analytics has paid dividends in how our various technologies can report on the data that they're finding. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see, I've got another question here. What are the kinds of job opportunities in cyber forensics, and what are the prereqs for the same? Okay, a good question. I think there are a lot of opportunities in cyber forensics right now. I think the prerequisites will vary based on exactly what employers are looking for, but clearly a strong mathematics background, clearly a strong background in cybersecurity, and then I would say a strong background in data analysis are all things that will probably help you to prepare for a job in forensics, which, you know, in today's environment is all about analysis, looking at large data sets, applying various algorithms and trying to find patterns and anomalies that will help identify advanced persistent threats and the behaviors that those bring about. Okay, got another question. Excellent. How to secure data traveling between application and storage? That's great. That's a good question and an easy one for me to answer. That's all about securing data that's in motion. And the best way to do that is with our encryption technologies. Both Atala and Voltage product lines have tremendous solutions to solve just that exact problem. They go about it in different ways based on your specific requirements. But if you've got a requirement for protecting data that's in motion as it's moving between the application to your longer-term storage, I think we definitely have solutions that will help solve that problem. And again, as I suggested with Dr. Ranjan, we've got contact information, and so Ravina here, our organizer, will be certain to call out. I can't see the name of that person where that question came from, but we'll definitely be in touch. Or you're also welcome to visit the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise website and look at our data security solutions, where you'll see a lot of information about protecting data at rest, protecting data in motion, and most importantly, I think what might apply to your solution here is the very unique technology we have under the Voltage brand called format preserving encryption, which is very unique, very cutting edge, and really is a game changer in the data encryption, data protection space. So if you just go online and even Google format preserving encryption, I'm quite certain the first few links you'll see will take you back to HP. Okay, let me see. I don't see any other questions. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I'm really glad to see such a large audience. Hopefully some of this information was helpful. Thank you for the questions. For those couple of folks that were looking for more information, we'll be certain to have HP representatives contact you. And I believe my contact information was on the title slide. Let me just go back and see here. No, I don't think it was. Well, I will make sure, as this event ends, we've got all the registrants, that my contact information is also available. So if you folks have any further questions, you are welcome to email me or call me directly, and happy to chat. So again, thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Take care. Thanks, Ravina.